Hey there. So today I want to talk to you guys about the motif for Santanico in Dusk Till Dawn. For those of us who write music for film and television, we're always looking for signatures, signature sound, a signature melody, something that will identify a particular situation or a character quickly, whether consciously or unconsciously, so that the viewer can make a connection. So one of the parameters that was established early on when Robert and I discussed the score for the series was that we didn't want a whole lot of melody. We wanted the score to have a lot of tension and a lot of discomfort so that it would keep the audience in a state of unease. And so when thinking about what would be an appropriate motif for Santanico, it had to be a simple, very minimalistic melody. Now, I've always been fascinated as to why certain chords or chord progressions elicit particular emotional responses. And the most simplistic way to demonstrate that is the major to minor. If you play this chord, that sounds like a happy chord, right? But then if you just change one note, the middle note, the third, into a minor, all of a sudden you get this, serious sounding chord. And we're only changing one note, and we're only changing it half a step. So it's the difference between this, happy, sad, or evil. It's just the middle note we're changing half a step. And I've always been fascinated. Why is it that changes the emotional reaction to that chord? And the answer is, I don't know that anybody knows. I don't know. It's like electricity for me. I don't know why it works, but I know that if I flip the switch, I'm going to have light in the house. So when thinking about what would be appropriate for Santanico, who has kind of an ambivalent role at the beginning of the series, we don't know if she's a good or evil character. She's a very mysterious figure. So I wanted to write something that danced around that ambivalence. And so I came up with this motif. It's just those three notes. So it's basically a major to minor change, Is she gonna help Richie and Seth? Or eat them? And so then once I'd established that was gonna be the motif for her, the next thing is what instrument's gonna work for her. Another big part of what we do when we write scores is we want to try and find signature sounds that are unique to that particular melody or that particular character. So I brought my friend Lee Mahoney, who's a fantastic violinist, and we just experimented with that melody in a couple different ways. And I asked her to play it ponticello, which means it's playing it very, very lightly and very, very close to the bridge. And this is what it sounded like. And I just love that. I still get goosebumps when I hear that. The beautiful thing about playing ponticello is that it creates these unexpected harmonics and overtones that make it really eerie sounding. And so I got so excited when I heard that. I had her play it a bunch of different ways. So that was one of them. And each time she plays it, there's different harmonics. And so I can use these in different instances. Lower octave. I love that. I got goosebumps. I just had her play it a bunch of different ways in different octaves, different approaches, different speeds. And I just made a catalog of all the different things that she did. And so I knew that was going to be useful throughout the series. Here, let me show you a couple examples where I used it. So in this scene, we see Richie, who's been kind of enchanted or hypnotized by Santanico's apparition. And he's in a field walking around like a zombie, holding a dead dog that's dripping blood. It's a very powerful scene. And so I used Santanico's motif in the background in order to reinforce the connection with her character. So this is what it sounds like. It's almost like a siren call, summoning Richie. So I just played it twice, back to back, different octaves, and it just creates this eerie feeling. You have the rest of that cue is just some different pads that kind of come in and out, and some low vocalizations that I did and multi-track myself and pitch myself down to make it more eerie. Here's another example of where we use that motif as well in a different scene. Yes, season 2, I think. So it's very little melody. Very different atmospheres. And then the melody comes back just ever so slightly. Here it comes again. And of course, the atmospheres evolve as the scene moves forward, and it gets bigger and smaller depending on what's going on in the scene. Now, by extension, since Santanico's history and story are very closely tied to the Twister bar, that's where she's been living for centuries, and that's where she's been guiding Richie and the gang to come to, it made sense to extend that melody to also represent the Twister. So when the gang arrived to the Twister for the first time, you hear this cue, which is kind of like a big finale type of cue. Basically, they crossed the border, they finally made it through, they see all these bikers, and all of a sudden the Twister is revealed. And this is what you hear. Here it comes. All of a sudden, here's the Twister. Same melody. Major, minor. And then later in the second season, we see Carlos destroy the Twister. And so for that, we had to, of course, replay that melody. So this particular track comes right after Carlos kills Narciso, which is a very emotional, very graphic scene where Narciso gets decapitated. And for that, I chose to use a choral piece, a very emotional kind of a lament with only vocals through that scene. So when we get to this scene, when Carlos is blowing up the Twister, I wanted to kind of combine all these elements, but also add this more contemporary vibe with a rock edge, kind of signifying the change of guard, if you will, that Carlos is now taking over. And so this track has this rock edge. It also carries a little bit of that choral piece that I have with some of the vocalizations. And at the end, we have a little bit of that Twister melody to kind of close off that chapter. So let me play the second half of that so you can check out what I'm talking about. So there's that rock edge. Here's that choral section. This connects to the previous scene. Here we go. Again, there's that motif. So simple, but it carries that immediate recognition, which is what we needed for that particular character and the Twister. And having had Lee come in and record those different versions of that motif early on and cataloging them and having them ready proved to be incredibly useful throughout the whole 3 seasons of the show. Because sometimes these shows, we have very little time to create music for each episode. In the second or third season, I think we had a couple of episodes where we only had about 5 or 6 days to turn around a whole 30, 35 minutes worth of score. And so having these pre-recorded elements in Pocket and catalog proved incredibly useful, and it saved a lot of time. So that's it for the inside look at Santanico's Motif. Be sure to check out From Dusk Till Dawn, the series, available on Netflix. And thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Go ahead and subscribe, let's stay in touch, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.